Hello again, and welcome back to Educator.com's Advanced PHP with MySQL course. In today's lesson, we're going to be discussing the details of the Advanced course's development environment. Specifically, we're going to be going over what the setup of our development environment for this course is going to be, and then we're going to go over what the directory structure of the files we're going to be using in this course are going to follow. For example, how the web application directories are going to be organized, how the lecture examples and homework solution directories are going to be organized. We're also going to talk about a piece of software written in PHP called PHP Documenter, which is something that we're going to be using in this course to document all of the web application function files and class files that we're going to be developing. And we're going to explain a little bit about what that is and what that documentation looks like. We're also going to have a quick note for previous Educator.com PHP students who have taken the introductory course to just mention some slight changes that have been made to the Educator Store web application from the end of the introductory lesson until the beginning of this advanced lesson. And then we're going to introduce our first homework challenge for this course. And homework challenges for those students new to Educator.com are basically challenges that I provide at the end of many different lessons to give you extra activity to work on so that you can reinforce and learn some of the concepts that we went over in a particular lesson. So the development environment setup we're going to be using for this course is actually the same that we used in the Introduction to PHP course. And basically that's comprised of a couple of different pieces of software, specifically the Firefox web browser. And that's the web browser we're going to be using for our development. We're also going to be using the XAMPP for Windows software distribution. And for those of you, again, new to Educator, the XAMPP software distribution is basically a software package that bundles PHP along with the Apache web server and makes the installation and configuration of those two easy. And in addition, it also provides the MySQL database. And because this is an advanced course, we're going to be dealing with MySQL database, we're going to take advantage of that piece of software that's added to the distribution as well. Additionally, we're going to be editing our text files and doing our code development in the PSPad text editor for Windows. If we go and just look at our web browser, you can see that quickly this is Mozilla is the maker of the Firefox web browser, so this is the page that you'll go to download the Firefox software, and all of these links are going to be are available in the introductory lesson. This website called ApacheFriends.org is the maker of the XAMPP for Windows software distribution, and this website tells a little bit about the different versions of the software, for example Apache, PHP, and MySQL that are included in the distribution we're going to be using. And then pspad.com is where you can download the editor for the text editor that we're going to be using. Additionally, we're also going to be using the Firebug add-on to Firefox, which is a web development tool that you can add on to Firefox to help you when working with web applications and diagnosing different problems. And actually, if I click on this, it's already installed here on this little bug down here at the bottom of the screen. You can see the Firebug add-on pop up, and we'll be working with that in this course, specifically when we'll be learning about HTTP and how that works. So in Lecture 3 of the introductory course, that basically contains all of the instructions for setting up the development environment we're going to be using in this course. So for those of you that are new to Educator.com, I encourage you to go check out Lecture 3 to find out how to set up the environment. It basically walks through all the different steps to get things up and running, and what that's going to allow you to do is to hopefully be able to mimic the things that we do here in the lectures on your own home computer. Additionally, there's a Lecture 28 titled Sending Email Using PHP that's part of that introductory course, and that also has some configuration, makes some configuration changes to the development environment that allows you to send email from your PHP code, and we use that in our Educator Store web application. So as far as the course goes, the lecture material or the course examples, such as the web application, the lecture examples, and the homework solutions are all going to be combined into a particular directory structure. And when you go to the Advanced PHP Courses website, you'll be able to download a zip file that contains all of the homework examples, lecture examples, and versions of the web application. Basically, what I'm going to do now is just sort of go over the structure of that zip file and basically how the files are going to be structured within our web tree or the document root of our Apache server. So first thing is we're going to be creating a file called advanced_php in the document root of Apache. And if we go to that, I've already gone in and basically unzipped this file that you're going to be able to get from the website. And if you look at in XAMPP, if we go to the XAMPP installation directory, there's an htdocs folder, which is the document root of the Apache web server bundled with XAMPP. And we have an advanced_php folder. Now within that folder there's going to be 3 different folders. One that's homework_solutions, which basically has a folder for each lecture that has a homework challenge and provides a solution for it. There's also a lecture examples folder which provides copies of all the examples that we run as we go through the lectures in the course. And probably most interestingly is the web app folder, and what that does is that contains all of the different versions of the Educator Store web application that we're going to be developing and building on as we go throughout this advanced course. So for each version of the web app there will be a separate folder that's going to contain all the files for that particular version of the web application. Here you can see we have version 0.0, and basically what that is that's sort of the baseline web app that we're going to start from. Because we had already been developing this web app in the introductory course, we're going to sort of baseline the app at version 0.0, and we're going to say this is where we're going to start from, and this is what the version that we're going to add on to as we add new concepts in this course. Additionally, there's also going to be a file called changelog.html within this web app folder, and basically what that's going to do is it's going to be a HTML file you can view in your browser that's going to allow you to see all of the different changes that were made when going from one version to the next. So it'll help you when looking at the different versions of the web app, rather than just looking at the source code to see the changes. You'll be able to go to changelog.html and see any specific changes that were actually made. So as mentioned, we're going to be using in this course, or at least the code that we're going to be including in the zip file that you can download for this course is going to be documented using a tool known as PHP Documenter. And basically what it is a tool that's used to automatically generate code documentation. Basically the way it works is it parses source code files and looks for particular tags, things known as tags, and formatting structures that you add as a programmer, and then from those it can generate documentation. And actually if we take a look at, for example, outputlib.php, which is our output function library, and we look at the output HTML tag function, we can see that the documentation for this particular function has some sort of strange, basically, tags in them. And what they are is ways to describe to the PHP Documenter tool information about the particular function. So for example, the @param tag is used to describe to PHP Documenter all of the different parameters that a particular function takes. The @return tag is used to describe the data type and what the data type of the return value and what the return value represents. There's a bunch of different other tags that we can use. For example, here this is an inline source tag, which basically outputs in the documentation all of the source code for a particular function. So basically what happens is PHP Documenter goes through and has run, basically parses over all of these source code files and generates documentation. Now for this course we're actually not going to be teaching how to use the PHP Documenter software, but it's an extremely useful tool for generating documentation, and it's going to make it easier for me to explain the different concepts that we'll be learning throughout the course, and to look at the different source code, because it basically formats source code in a nice, pretty format, and it's going to make it easier to describe things. So it's something that Educator will be doing on the back end, and basically with each version of the web application that we create and that we're going to include in the zip file you can download, there's going to be documentation generated for that particular version. And it's actually going to be contained in the docs folder in each version of the web application. folder. So for example, if we go to the advanced PHP folder and go to the web app directory, and we look at, for example, version 0.0, we'll see that there's a docs folder. And basically it has a index.html file which you can browse to that's going to show documentation for all of the different functions, and when we learn about objects and classes, all of the classes that are used in that particular version of the web application. So if we actually go, I'm going to go and show you what the documentation looks like. So for example, if we go to version 0.0, and this is just browsing to this file in our web browser, and we go to docs, it automatically loads index.html. And what you can see is it has a rather nicely formatted website, and basically it provides information about all of the functions that we use in this version 0.0 of the web app. So for example, you can categorize the functions into different groups. So for example, I've categorized all of the output functions that are contained in outputlib.php into sort of an output category. And it lists here all the different functions that are defined in this outputlib.php. So for example, if we click on the link output HTML tag, we can actually see the documentation that PHP Documenter has created for this particular function. And what it did was it went through and parsed this source code file that we had, and we talked about the different tags that it looks for, and generates this documentation. So we can see it has a statement about what the function does. It returns a well-formed HTML tag, including any provided tag attributes and or tag body. Provides a little additional information that we can include to describe what the function does. Here we can see it actually outputs the source code of that particular function, and we're going to this is going to be useful to us because when we're going over and explaining how the different versions of the web app works, we're typically going to be looking at the documentation we're going to be using the documentation to look at the source code, because as you can see, it formats the code in a rather nice way so that it does syntax highlighting so that you can see things and make things clearer. Additionally, it also allows you to, it also has links to different functions. So for example, one thing that the code automatically does is if you use, for example, the isString function within one of your methods, you can click on it and it'll automatically link to that function's reference at php.net. So for example, if I click on isString, it actually, and this is a little big, it actually goes to the php.net website and shows you the documentation for isString. And that's really quite a useful feature. The other thing that will allow you to do is, for example, down here in the output image function, when we look at the source code for it, we can see that it also calls the output HTML tag. And if you'll notice, output HTML tag is actually a link, and if we click on it, then it goes and it links to the output HTML tags documentation. So it really is a convenient way to browse the documentation for different functions. Basically enables you to figure out how the different functions work together and how they're connected. One other thing to note is that if you just want to actually look at the source code for a particular file, for example, if we want to look at the source code for all of the output functions in outputlib.php, we can if we click on outputlib.php, brings us to this page. We can click on the link at the top that says source code for this file, and basically what it does is it contains all of the source code that's contained in that file. And this again it shows it formatted in a nice way. You can actually see here the different PHP Documenter tags, but then you can also see all of the code that you've written, and we're going to be using that to look through code as we work throughout the course. If you want to find out more information about using PHP Documenter, and if you want to use that in your own code, and I highly recommend it, it's a very useful tool, you can find information about that at phpdoc.org. And one of the ways you can actually learn about how it uses is actually by seeing the different tags that we use within our source code files for the course. So now I just wanted to briefly mention a couple things for those students that are previous educator PHP students that have taken the introduction course. Basically, in addition to adding these PHP Documenter tags to all of our source code files that allow us to create this documentation, there's been a couple other changes that have been made to the final version of that introductory web app. A couple of things to note is that the lib directory where we contain our function libraries has actually been moved into now in the includes directory. Before, lib and includes were two separate directories in the root directory of a web app version. Now the lib directory is contained in the includes directory. Additionally, we've also moved the images directory back into each version of the web app. So for example, each version of the web app, if we go to version 1.0, it has its own images directory. If we go to version 1.1, it has its own images directory. So we had in the introductory course move that out of that directory to sort of demonstrate working with constants and being able to basically change the location of an image directory and have your application still work. And we did that to emphasize a point, but now we're going to use the images directory in a more real-world application where it actually be in the root directory of the web application. Additionally, in our configuration file, config.php, we've actually gotten rid of the version constant. And what we've done is we've now generate all of the URIs and paths that we use in our include file, in our config file, for example, to load libraries and to load include files. We're going to generate the URIs dynamically. So if we look at the old version of config.php, we can see we had a version constant. And for each version of the web app, we'd have to come in and update this version, the version number. And basically, as you can see here, what it did is we used this constant to basically define the path to our particular version of a web application. Now what we've done is we've removed that constant. And actually what we've done is we've generated this root URI, which is sort of the path we use to define, for example, where our images are located in the image dir, as well as where our include directory is, our lib directory are, and so forth. We generate that dynamically, and we do that using the magic constant file, and then also using our server document root. And so there's a little bit of code here at the beginning that will automatically generate that. What that's going to do is now every time we update the application of the version of the web application, we don't actually have to go and update that version constant anymore. And finally, another thing that we've done is just updated some of the comments. There were some comments that noted specific version numbers in the introductory course. For example, there might be a comment that said this function was added in version 16.0. Well, 16.0 is not relevant in this advanced course. It's version 6.0 in the introductory course. So we've gone ahead and removed those version numbers from our comments. So for the homework challenge for today, basically I just like you to look through the web application source code to make sure you understand how our web application is functioning. And you can go through version 0.0, play around with the code, play around with the website to see how it works. Additionally, I think it'd be a good idea if you look through the documentation that has been generated by PHP Documenter for version 0.0, which is our baseline version for this course. So you can get a feel for what the documentation looks like and how to use it, and how you can link, for example, from function to function, how you can click on a link to go to the php.net website, and it'll just give you some experience with getting familiar with what that documentation looks like, because we're going to be looking at that documentation a lot throughout the course. Finally, for students that are new to educator.com, I'd like you to go ahead and if you need to, review Lecture 3 and Lecture, I believe it was 28 from the introductory course, to find out what you need to do to get your development environment set up on your computer so that you can basically mimic the things that we do here in the lectures on your home computer. So that ends today's lesson. Thank you for watching educator.com, and look forward to seeing you next time.